hard-fought games. The stakes do not get any higher.
Two of the greatest words in the world, Game 7.
There's nothing like Game 7 in the NBA Finals.
One game for everything you ever dreamed of.
Puts it in. He is the moment. One game, NBA Finals, Game 7.
Less than 24 hours away from the game that will determine it all. The Pacers Thunder, Game 7 on ABC, Indiana. They fought their way back to force a Game 7 with a convincing win at home in Game 6, but now the heavy favorites look to take it all in Game 7. We've got Jamal Collier from Oklahoma City with more on this final game.
The Indiana Pacers are a win away from pulling off one of the biggest upsets in NBA Finals history. But one final hurdle remains, winning a Game 7 in Oklahoma City. And that means facing one of the best home crowds in the NBA. The Pacers know this winner-take-all game is going to come down to the intangibles, taking care of the ball, rebounding, and what Tyrese Halliburton calls momentum-stopping plays to take the crowd out of it.
I think something that's an underrated aspect of the game of basketball is momentum. And, when you're on your home floor you make a tough shot or have an alley-oop dunk or make a highlight play of some sort, it gets the crowd involved. That's momentum that goes your way. You got to be able to weather the storm with those momentum swinging plays, try to create, momentum stopping plays when you're on the road. That's important as well.
Each game takes on a different personality, has different characteristics. Different guys step up, different situations happen, et cetera. So the truth is that nothing else previous to this matters at all now. We're just down to one game and one opportunity, and so we're really looking forward to it.
The Pacers have been here before. They rallied down 3-2 in last year's second round to win a Game 7 on the road in New York. They'll draw on that experience, but Miles Turner says it's not quite the same. The stakes are much higher. This one is for all the marbles. With the Pacers, Jamal Collier, ESPN.
All right, Jamal, thanks so much. The Pacers, they've gotten to this point thanks in large part to the depth this postseason. 8 different Indiana players have scored at least 200 points during this playoff run. That is the most in a single postseason in NBA history.
With the Pacers 1 win away from history, head coach Rick Carlisle faces the 6th Game 7 of his career with a win on Sunday. He joined Steve Kerr as the only coaches to win 3 road Game 7s in NBA history. For more on him, the Pacers, and OKC, we welcome an NBA analyst, Michael Wilbon. Michael, you've been covering Rick Carlisle since his college days when he played with Ralph Sampson over at UVA. Where would the Pacers be without him? How much credit should he get in this coaching battle in this series for bringing the Pacers to this point?
Well, in order, I don't think they'd be in the NBA Finals without him, Ryan, and he deserves an enormous amount of credit. Rick Carlisle is one of those people, one of those coaches who has flown under the radar somehow, even though he's one of only 14 people to have won a title already as both a player and a head coach in the NBA. He is certainly one of the smartest and wisest, whether we're talking strategic, whether we're talking about connectivity with his players in terms of getting them to do exactly what is needed during a series or a night-to-night basis with adjustments. All of it. It encompasses everything. And so I don't know why exactly Rick has flown under the radar, but people ought to be paying attention to what he's done in this entire postseason and this series.
It's a great point. You talk about Rick Carlisle, 38 playoff wins with the Pacers, more than any other coach in the franchise's NBA history. But you talk about him being under the radar. Indy has pretty much been betting underdogs throughout this entire playoffs. Every game this series. We talk about the Knicks series. Nobody expected them to win that series, yet here they are. Now we're at Game 7. So if they win Game 7, what would it mean for the NBA if the Indiana Pacers were to be world champions?
That's a wow. It sounds sort of fictional, Ryan. Not that the Pacers couldn't do that, but it sounds like Hoosiers. That's what the Pacers are. They are Hoosiers, and it's not a movie. It's a real thing that they're embarking upon. It's interesting. So the small market team that has had the greatest success, I think it's fair to say, in the NBA, and there have been some. I mean, Cleveland Cavaliers, obviously, we're talking small market, but the San Antonio Spurs, should pop to mind immediately. And also, though, when you look at the Pacers, who've gotten this far before to the finals, when you look at OKC, which has been in the finals, I don't know that they're all that different, except the Pacers have this reputation of being the place in America where basketball is as important, if not more important than any place. And I don't know that it'll be so different, Pacers from OKC, I know from Thunder, because the league then, Ryan, gets a model where it's not about anybody's big three, where it's not about a super team, where it's not about how much you have to spend. There's got to be some ingenuity, and there's got to be some great scouting and great organization and great infrastructure to put together teams in a smaller market.
Now, we saw the Thunder, right? Game 7 earlier this year, they beat the Nuggets 125-93. That was in OKC. Can the success of that Game 7 have any impact on their performance tomorrow?
You know what, Ryan, maybe temporarily. And I spent this afternoon talking to some people around the league who've been involved at various levels in these high-stakes playoff games and some Game 7s with different organizations. And the sentiment seems to be, yeah, obviously OKC is going to have a certain confidence when they walk on the floor. But then we get to the Mike Tyson portion of the program where everybody feels something until they get hit in the mouth, and then you feel something else. And so what happens if Indiana walks onto the, if OKC walks onto the floor with exactly the confidence derived from winning a Game 7 against a recent former champ, but Indiana matches that, you know, with its pace and its sort of ability to protect the ball and not turn it over and play the way the Pacers have played when they've been on it in this series. How long does that last? And so I've been, the reaction I've gotten, the feedback I've gotten directly is, no, these things are very individual and result-oriented, and let's see how it plays out and just wipe away all the history that you think you know when you get to Game 7s like this, where human emotion is such a staggering part of it. So I'm going to try to follow those instructions. I'm going to try to listen and learn, Ryan, and go into this with as much a blank slate as possible.
Yeah, they got the Game 7 experience, but they don't have the Game 7 experience against these Pacers and how they've been playing. It's a great point, Michael. We'll have to see how this one plays out. It's going to be a great Game 7 regardless. Michael Wilbon, always great to talk to you, my friend. A lot going on, and we should have known this series would be back and forth from Game 1. Tyrese Halliburton, clutch once again, giving the Pacers their only lead of the game with 0.3 seconds left on the clock. And they take it. Now, Thunder answered back in Game 2. League MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander led the charge with his 9th straight 30-point performance at home, tying Wilt for the longest streak in postseason history. Series shifted to Indy for Game 3, and it looked like the momentum might as well. The Pacers took the series lead behind a 27-point game from Benedict Mathurin, so that was big. And then the Thunder, well, they needed an answer in Game 4, and once again, it came from the MVP. SGA did it all himself, 35 points, no assists. First player to do that in a finals game since the logo, Jerry West in 1962. OKC carried that momentum into Game 5. This time, Jalen Williams taking center stage. Jalen Williams became the second Thunder player with a 40-point game in the finals, joining Russ, who did it back in 2012. On to Game 6. Backs against the wall for the Pacers. Their D showed up and showed out. 16 steals in the win, most by any team in a finals game since the 08 Celtics. So now Game 7, and here's Tim MacMahon on OKC and their home court madness.
The Thunder earned home court advantage throughout the playoffs by rolling to the NBA's best record. And man, his home court made a difference in OKC. The Thunder have outscored opponents by 247 points at Paycom Center these playoffs. That's the best home margin ever for a team in a single postseason. I asked OKC stars why being home has mattered so much for this team.
You're ultimately like in your complete comfort zone. Like the flow of the day doesn't change. You're in your own bed. You have shoot around at your building. You eat your pregame meal for your chef or your whoever. So it's just like it's very comfortable. The whole flow to the day, and then the crowds behind you, they give you energy, whether you're up or down or whatever's going on in the night.
It makes like the hair on your arms stand up a little bit. But from like a fan perspective, I can't imagine it won't be anything short of like incredibly loud. Obviously, they're going to be anxious too. Like we're very close to, finishing the job, but very close doesn't get you far unless you finish it.
Game 7 will be the third time the Thunder have had a chance to clinch a series at home during this run. The previous two were parties at Paycom, blowout wins over the Nuggets and Timberwolves. If that trend continues, a parade is next. With the Thunder, Tim MacMahon, ESPN.
Okay, look, everybody, if history is anything to go off of, it might be time to finalize the parade route. Home teams are 15-4 in Game 7 of the NBA Finals all time. The last team to fall in front of their home crowd was the Warriors back in 2016. But again, this is the Pacers. Bet against them at your own risk.
NBA